Hello and welcome back to the course on Tableau. And in the previous sections of this course, we created the dashboard. It's all ready to go. It's fired up. Let's have a look at it and analyze how the different regions, what's happening in the different regions of the UK for this bank. So to get into it right away, this is our customer baseline. Let's have a look at it. We know that most of our customers are in England, then second place is Scotland, then Wales, then Northern Ireland. Now, if you look at the breakdown by balance, you'll see that it's dropping off gradually, first slowly and then quite quickly, and that is something that you would expect, that the lower the balance band, the more customers you will have in that band. So 0 to 10,000, 10,000 to 20, 20 to 30,000 all have about 15% of our customers, which in total constitute 45% of our customers sit under $30,000. Next, the distribution by age is also quite interesting. Here you can see that most of our customers are in their 30s, so early 30s and late 30s, and together that's 40%. So if I change this to age groups by 10 years, you'll see that 40% of our customers are in their 30s, in their 30s basically. And now if we go back, here you can see the gender breakdown, so a bit more males than females, but not that much of a difference. And job classification, mostly white collar, so nearly half, and then a quarter each for blue collar and other. All right, so now let's look at the regions and see how, when we click on the regions, they deviate from the baseline, because that is ultimately what we want to report, how each region is different to the overall average. So if we click on the United Kingdom, you can see that distribution by balance doesn't change that much. Gender changes a little bit, but also not that much, so 5% change. Distribution by age changes. So here in our overall representation, on our baseline, you can see that this is a right skewed distribution, meaning that this is the mean of this. It looks like a normal distribution, which is natural. So here you can see that the mean is sitting at somewhere at about 35 years old, and then it's got a long right-sided tail. So that means that it is a right skewed distribution. Whereas when you click on England, the distribution is no longer right skewed. What that is telling us is that the customers that are in their later age groups, they are not predominantly, they're not in England, they're somewhere else. And now what we want to look at is the job classification. So here you can see white collar 50%. In England, it's actually 70%. So much more white collar workers in England. And perhaps that has something to do with London, the economic hub of Europe, being in this region. And therefore, perhaps a lot of the finance workers or workers in the finance industry decide to bank with our bank. So they might find it attractive, and that's something you want to convey to the executives, that when they are advertising or working with customers in England, perhaps it's a good idea to take due care or special care of the white collar workers and see how you can tailor the services to their needs in this specific region. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in our storyline, that England is predominantly white collar workers. Next, we'll move on to Scotland. Once again, we will unclick the map, so we have the baseline, and now when we click on Scotland, we can visually compare. You can see that the balance distribution changes a bit, but not too much. There's some anomalies, but the rest of the charts change quite a lot. So gender breakdown goes from 54% male all the way to 72% male. White collar workers completely disappear, or there's a little bit of them here. And mostly it's blue collar workers and other, and also the age demographic is completely different. So now our customers are in their late 40s, early 50s, which is very, very interesting. So what this is telling us is that if you're going to service this region, or when you're servicing this region and creating promotions and different campaigns for this region, you have to aim for a much older demographic, predominantly male, and more in the blue collar space. So if I click on blue collar, here you'll see that 95% of the blue collar workers in this region are all male. And if I click on other, you'll see that there's a different picture here, more female. So if you are going to aim for blue collar workers, you want to expand the net or the bank customer base in Scotland in the blue collar worker space, then you should be targeting males in their late 40s, early 50s. On the other hand, if you want to target other kind of professions, then you should still take into consideration that there is a large female representation in even in this region where overall there is predominantly a male representation. So that's what we'll be focusing on in Scotland in our storyline. Let's move on to Wales. What can we see in Wales? Well, the first thing that jumps into attention is the balance. So if you look at the overall distribution of balance, it gradually falls off. In Wales, it's stagnant for a bit. We can dig into this further by grouping these balances not into $10,000 groups but into $15,000 groups. And here you can see a different picture. So for the overall base, you can see it's still gradually falling off in these balance groups. For Wales, it's actually first going up, then it's staying above the original level of about 18%, and then it's dropping off. So what that is telling us is that in Wales, there's an abnormally large representation of abnormally large representation of mid-sized balances. So balances from zero to $45,000. It is above average. It's not consistent with the overall baseline, and so that's something we want to report. The other elements here, they're not as significant. Well, there is quite a bit of a gender split, a different gender split. Job classification changes a bit, distribution by age, but probably what is the most interesting part is this distribution by balance. And finally, if we move on to Northern Ireland, here you can see another a completely different demographic once again. So I'm going to go back to balance group 10,000, and this is quite consistent with the baseline. A bit of anomalies, but that's to do with the low sample size. But what we can see here is 74% are female, and mostly this demographic is a younger demographic. So mostly these people are in their late 20s, early 30s, as opposed to in the baseline early 30s to late 30s. So they're a bit younger, and they're predominantly female, 74%, which is completely opposite to our baseline, where the customers are predominantly male. And here the main job classification is other workers. And if we click on that, you will see that they're predominantly female. So that is how to analyze a segmentation dashboard. You can definitely look at additional insights and drill in further. So you could go here, and then you could try to analyze what's going on with these specific workers and derive more insights from this data. And that's definitely something you should do. But for the storyline, that is sufficient for us. Those are like conversational topics, something to get the storyline going, and you'll see how this all comes together in a storyline. And also you can see now why it's called a segmentation dashboard, because it allows us to segment our customer base and understand how to service them better. I'll give you an example. Let's say your bank comes up with an insurance offering, or some kind of new product that involves insurance. Well, if this bank wants to market the insurance offering to your existing customers, then you would approach it differently in different regions. For instance, in Scotland, you know that your customers, just by looking at this picture right away, you know that your customers are in their late 40s and early 50s. They're predominantly male and mostly blue-collar workers. So you just keep that thought in mind for a second. Now let's go to Northern Ireland. Here you can see a completely different picture. You can see that they're predominantly female in their early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. So even if you're marketing the same product, you might want to position it differently. So in Northern Ireland, you might say that this insurance will allow you to take care of life-changing events. For example, purchasing homes, or getting married, or having children, and so on, because that's important to take care of these events that are changing your life, and so on. And in Scotland, these people have already had all of those events, most of these people. So you would position it differently. You would say this insurance is important because it will help you protect the people you love. It will help you look after your families. And we know you're in a high-risk profession, and you're doing a lot of manual labor. So it is important to have this insurance so that you are covered and the people that you love are protected. And so that way, that is how businesses benefit from these type of segmentation dashboards, because they not only are able to sell their products, they're able to sell their products much more in a much more tailored fashion, much more making the offering more relevant to the people they're targeting. And there's nothing bad about it. It's actually a good thing that you're delivering a good customer experience. You're showing your customers that you know who they are, you know what they care about and what is important to them. And that is very important in today's world, where we have lots and lots of data which you can use and you can analyze, and businesses should take advantage of this data to make the customer experience as great as possible. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, happy analyzing.